Hello, my name is Yi-Chin Lee, and I'm here to present our pictorial, co-authored with Lea Albaugh, on hybrid embroidery games, playing with materials, machines, and people. In this work, we draw from precedents in both crafting and gameplay to create a set of turn-based collaborative games centered around a hybrid digital embroidery machine. These games highlight aspects of crafting creativity that are often overlooked in digital fabrication, playfulness, and possibilities for social engagement. We draw from precedents in several domains. The first two domains, gaming and crafting, share common properties of being playful, improvisational, and often collective. Within HCI, research on social craft has explored embedded computational element to track and enhance social connections, as well as study existing online crafting communities such as Reverie. HCI Games research has investigated ways to enhance gameplay and support player imagination. For example, through seamless behind-the-scenes computation to track game state in the real world. And finally, recent research in personal and interactive digital fabrications has begun to explore the potential of computational methods to support situated real-time exploration of materials. Other work at these intersections of craft games and personal fabrication has included Luminary and thread setting, which embed digital gameplay into a computational craft system. In contrast, in our work, the gameplay itself is not digital. Instead, it is a set of socially enforced guidelines to mediate between the machine, the user, and the material outputs. We designed a workshop game incorporating machine embroidery alongside two other existing activities. First, the activity of a quilting bee, in which multiple participants work together on a single quilt. Second, the surrealist party game, Exquisite Corpse, in which each player adds to drawing without knowing everything else that has been drawn. Both of these activities include collaborative making, though quilting bee is more typically collaborative, whereas Exquisite Corpse center around the moments of surprise reveal. Taking cue from both, we plan a workshop in which participants gather to iterate and complete one participant's quilting project. But then the pandemic happened, forcing us to shift to a play-by-mail remote version. We go over the details of both versions in the full pictorial, but for today's presentation, I will describe the play-by-mail version because its much more distinctly turn-based nature uniquely highlighted the interaction modes available to craft games. So in the remote version, the central artifact was a shoebox-sized kit, which was passed around between players. The kit includes tools and materials to do hand embroidery as well as instructions. Each player completes some hand embroidery on a swatch of fabric according to two-part set of instructions. First, they had to complete either a head, a torso, or legs as instructed to align with the other player's body parts. And second, they had additional unique constraint writing by the previous player. We also test a variant scenario in which the participant received a swatch that had already been machine embroidered. Ultimately, these head, torso, and leg swatches were recombined to create a fantastic creature. We see our game as a computational mechanism for mediating between the player and material, people, and the machine. In the play-by-mail version, the much longer player turns particularly highlight these interactions as occurring in distinct modes. In each mode, different concerns were brought to the foreground. First, the player interacts directly with the material of the embroidery. Our focus on hybrid craft and specifically on embroidery was motivated in part by the richness of material possibility. In the initial workshop, we saw many participants choosing to simply use marker drawing for quick iteration. We saw an opportunity for the slower pace of the play-by-mail variant to support greater material explorations. We introduced the material constraint text to address this. Each player was instructed to follow a specific set of material constraints, such as to use something with leather, pink, or feathers. After their own embroidery, each player wrote the task for the next player. We found that this constraint did push the players to use material beyond what they may have initially considered, and we saw material creativity ranging from the addition of latex blooms to magazine cutouts. We noticed that framing of the task even influenced the result beyond the material usage. For example, this swatch ended up using the idea of feathers, but not literal ones. Second, the player observed their own work through the lens of the machine's enhancements. Machine element can support creativity through feedback or a prompt. As feedback, by responding to the crafter's input, the machine can highlight, support, or undermine aspects of the work that the crafter may not have been noticed. In the swatch with machine contribution overlay onto humans' work, we found that the machine's addition were often semantically rationalized as a continuation of human composition. For example, as an extra garment or as a pool of water. As a prompt, machine input helped defeat the blank page and suggests possible creativity and aesthetics direction. We saw that swatches generated with machine sewing prompt tend to echo the color palette and abstract shape of those prompts. And finally, people in the mode, the player see other participant work and has opportunities for humor and discussion. While neither the workshop nor play by male participants exhibit the obvious social behavior we initially hoped for, such as chatting or unprompt collaboration, we observe a polite turn-taking behavior in both experiences. Participants will tend to leave more room for ambiguity when they know that their human collaborators still had addition to make. In the play-by-mail game, the primary channel of social contact was the material task, complying with the given text, then create the new one. We saw both sportsmanship and humor here, with tasks that incorporate personal element and let room for interpretation, such as softer than your bedsheet or that you have been meaning to throw away. In other words, the player positioned this task as somewhere between the prompts and the challenge. Indeed, in the final step of assembling the embroidered swatch together, we observed participants using language of collaborative competition. One participant immediately pointed out another as a better and wanted to see all the material text so she could do a better job next time. In other words, the participant did genuinely perceive our embroidery experiments as a game. The result of the game was served to choreography the modes of material, machine, and people. But also a game acts as a magic circle, a place with its own norm and expectation to support creative risk and extract the buy-in of effort that participants may not otherwise have committed to. In other words, the norms of gameplay itself allow for text and might otherwise seem absurd, and provide a gentle buffer against disappointing result. We found that some participants were initially uneasy with having their work altered, either by machine or by another participant, but the lower stake of the game convinced them to try it out. And the social compact of gameplay can be quite strong. One participant changed her clothes because her material tasks require her to use material that the same color as what you were wearing, and she disliked the idea of using that color creatively. She could have simply cheated, since she was working alone in her own home, but she felt that changing her clothes was a more satisfying solution. In summary, our work used the structure of gameplay with digital embroidery system to choreography a path of engagement with materials, machine, and people. In doing so, we highlight the value of material and collaborative crafting in HCI, and we hope to inspire other researchers to use gameplay and iterative game design as a way to integrate existing and possible relationship in human-computer material interaction. Thank you for watching. Please contact me with any questions.